They know. And they stayed. That's not weakness, it's love. You hid the wound. They felt the blood. The mask never fooled the one sent by God. They saw the storm in your silence and didn't run. You buried the truth, but their soul already touched it. What you fear they'll discover is the very thing they came to heal. Even your darkness has been loved by them. You covered the scars. They memorized the pain. You think they love your light. They came for your shadows. They know what you did. They also know who you're becoming. You didn't tell them, but they wept anyway. They heard the scream beneath your smile. They looked you in the eye and didn't flinch. They touched your hands and felt what you never said. They know the cost of your calm. The secret didn't scare them. The silence did. They saw the version of you you've tried to bury, and loved it. They met your past and whispered, "I'm not leaving." You think they don't see, but their love has X-ray vision. They read your soul like scripture, pain and all. You weren't exposed. You were held. They know what happened, and they still pray your name. You ran from your shame. They waited with grace. They know the weight you carry, and still offer wings. The hidden thing? It's the reason they were sent. They didn't need proof. Your energy confessed it. They heard the cry beneath your quiet. You were afraid to be found. They were afraid you'd stay hidden. They don't need the story. They already carry the ache. You weren't a mystery. They just had holy patience. They didn't ask, but they never looked away. You were a locked door. They were a sacred key. They didn't come for your perfection. They came to kneel at your ruin. They know, but they believe in resurrection. You didn't need to explain. They loved you before the words. They knew before you confessed, and still chose you. They weren't looking for innocence, only truth. You thought it would scare them. It made them stay longer. They see the version of you that's still healing. They came to love the part you fear is unlovable. They weren't surprised. They were prepared. You feared rejection. They were ready to redeem. You hid the fire. They walked through it for you. They didn't need your clean version. They came for the real one. They touched your hidden pain and blessed it. They know what you're hiding, and that's exactly why they love you. You hid it in shame. They carry it in prayer. You never said it, but they've always known. They weren't shocked. They were sent. If this touched your soul, don't scroll. Comment your favorite quote and subscribe for more. Here are quotes 51 to 150 for the soul-piercing topic. They know what you're hiding. Each quote is under 25 words, divine, raw, and written like it's the last time they'll believe in love unless they read this. They know your shame, but they still want your name. You covered it with silence. They uncovered it with love. They didn't search your history. They searched your heartbeat. You feared they'd leave, but they arrived deeper. They read your pain like prophecy. You thought your secret made you unworthy. It made you real. They've known the truth longer than you feared it. You were a riddle. They were fluent in heartbreak. They loved what you protected. Even your worst moment didn't cancel your worth in their eyes. They traced the cracks in your story with reverence. You saw yourself as damage. They saw you as divine evidence. Your mess didn't scare them. It summoned them. They're not here to expose you. They came to embrace you. They recognized the soul under the secret. You gave them your best. They stayed for your broken. They didn't need you whole. They needed you honest. They know what happened, but they speak to what's healing. They never ask for the mask. They asked for the marrow. What you feared would end love began it. They saw your shadow and whispered, "Come closer." They felt the grief you never said aloud. You don't have to hide anymore. They already saw. They stayed after what should have pushed them away. Your truth didn't ruin it. It rooted it. They know your damage, but they see your design. They watched your silent scream. You were afraid they'd change, but your truth made them loyal. What scared you called them deeper. They don't need your apology. They want your presence. They came knowing the cost of you. They heard what shattered you and still whispered, "Mine." They didn't flinch. They fell. You were terrified of losing them. They were terrified you'd never open. They weren't waiting for a version of you. They wanted you. They know the darkness. And they bring light. Your honesty is their home. They didn't run. They built an altar. Your secret is safe in their silence. They knew, but they waited for you to trust them. They came not for clarity, but for covenant. You tried to ruin it. They turned it holy. They stayed after the truth, not despite it. Your hidden chapter is the one they came to read. They didn't just see the truth. They held it. What broke? You didn't break their belief in you. They chose to be near your ache. They felt the guilt behind your grin. You thought they'd never love you if they knew. They only loved you more. If this touched your soul, don't scroll, like, comment your favorite quote, and subscribe for more. They came not to judge, but to join. They didn't analyze you, they anointed you. They saw past what you did into who you were. Your secret didn't shame them. It stirred them. You tried to erase yourself. They kept writing you in. You feared they'd flee. They fasted and prayed. They know the brokenness, but speak only to the brilliance. They saw your truth, and it felt familiar. They looked into your fear and found home. They didn't come to rescue. They came to remember. You thought they'd never forgive. They were born to. They know what you carry and still ask to carry you. They didn't need proof. They already chose. Your scars are sacred to them. They heard the silence after your betrayal. They didn't want you perfect, just present. They know how deep the pain goes. They still want forever. You were scared they'd see, but they already did and loved anyway. They don't flinch at the truth. They bless it. You can fall apart now. They brought peace. You didn't hide well enough, but thank God for that. They know your weakness, and it made them weep with love. They didn't stay because they had to. They stayed because they saw it all. You were afraid your truth would push them away, but it magnetized their spirit. They loved the part of you even you couldn't. You think you're stained. They think you're sacred. They won't walk away. They were sent. They see your shame and wrap it in reverence. They saw the mess and still felt destiny. You flinched. They reached. They see the soul beneath the survival. You were terrified of being seen, but you were made to be revealed. They saw your guilt and brought grace. They know what happened in the dark. They came as light. You were sure they'd leave, but they were sure you're worth it. They know, but they still call you beloved. They don't see what you did. They see who you are. You feared being known. They came knowing. They traced your silence, like scripture. You didn't lose them with your truth. You found them through it. They know what you regret, but they still hope with you.